2023 is already shaping up to be the unofficial year of censorship. Prime Minister Blackface McGroper is hell-bent on enacting Bill C-11, which will allow the Liberals to essentially censor the internet for our collective protection, of course. Then there's the College of Psychologists of Ontario demanding that Dr. Jordan Peterson submit himself to this quack collective in order to be, reprogrammed, given that Dr. Peterson is guilty of too much wrong thought. And get this, on the heels of all that Orwellianism comes a list of personalized plates that the Ontario Ministry of Transportation rejected in 2022. Gee, I wonder if those cats would approve a plate displaying the word Orwellian. In any event, like so many other jurisdictions, if you pony up an extra $300 or so, an Ontarian motorist can buy a personalized license plate of up to 8 characters in length. Sorry, Premier Ford, cherry cheesecake is just way too verbose, but fat chance works. Anyway, naturally, there are restrictions aside from the number of characters. For example, no profanity. Thus, even though thousands of Ontarians would presumably love to brandish an F. Trudeau license plate, that's a no-go. Besides, we must consider the uber-delicate feelings of Aaron O'Toole, who would no doubt go into a coma if he were to see that plate traversing the King's highways. In addition, plates cannot condone violence and criminal activity. You can't use a plate to laud a sexual act or a bodily function. Political figures cannot be mentioned. And then there's this murky category called human rights discrimination. This is apparently the chestnut employed to reject anything the provincial plate censors don't like for whatever reason. The thing is, when one scans through the hundreds and hundreds of vanity plates that were rejected in 2022, there are so many rejected plates that simply do not make sense. Consider I Hate 401. Is it actually a so-called human rights discrimination issue to proclaim one's hatred of a Hogtown highway that is seemingly endlessly mired in gridlock? Yeah, apparently so. Likewise, OK Karen is under the ban. Really? OK Karen? Aside from active members of the Karen community, who would complain about that? Red Drum was also rejected. Yeah, any reader of The Shining will tell you that Red Drum is murder spelt backwards. Well, sort of. But what if the guy asking for this plate just wanted to laud his crimson-colored drum set? Alas, no dice. Oh, and here's a beauty. Greta who was rejected on the grounds of references to political figures. Now, I'm assuming that the Greta in question is Greta Thunberg, but it's amazing that Greta Thunberg is considered to be a political figure because who, pray tell, elected this weirdo and what office does she hold?
How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words.
And can you believe it? No COVID was rejected. Now, regardless of political leanings, don't we all collectively hate COVID? Then again, maybe the CEOs and shareholders of certain pharmaceutical companies absolutely adore COVID. Just look at the positive effect the coronavirus had on their earnings these past few years. Wine for me was deep sixed. Isn't that odd? Wine is a legal product. Ontario is a wine-growing region. What's the problem here? Finally, I think the most inexplicable rejection was for a plate that read A Canada. Think about that. The unnamed bureaucrats at the Ministry of Transportation deemed that Canada is somehow, some way, an offensive term, even though this plate would have been brandished by a Canadian motorist residing in a Canadian province. Or then again, is the very word Canada to, freedom convoy-ish. After all, the Canadian flag in some circles is perceived to be a hate symbol. So if the maple leaf can be deemed offensive to those who hate freedom, then I suppose Canada is a dirty word these days too, at least to the bureaucrats at Ontario's Ministry of Transportation, who appear to be intoxicated on that evil elixir known as censorship. For Rebel News, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies. Hey folks, I know you love it when Rebel News brings you the other side of the story, but it comes at a cost. We don't receive a single nickel of government funding from this Trudeau regime, nor would we accept it if offered. So if you can, please go to rebelinvestigates.com. That's rebelinvestigates.com. And if you're able to, kindly make a donation. My thanks in advance.